crossed with their hands. But as soon as they saw him standing in the corner, they all stopped. They all stopped, they stared, and they smiled because he was smiling at them. And sometimes it's the little things that make the difference in the lives of our children each and every day. So as I shared, it's absolutely humbling and it's a pleasure to be here. It's nice to be home. I live in Lancaster now, but I'm from Philadelphia. Taught in the school district of Philadelphia. Worked for the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, assistant principal, principal, executive director of high schools, and employee entry. It's nice to be home and to engage with many of my colleagues, my friends, that have really fought on behalf of the children of our community for so many years. And it's bittersweet. It's sweet because I remember having a conversation about today from the conceptual sense 2 years ago, and get to see it come to fruition is absolutely humbling. But then it's bitter because I see a few faces in the audience that have offered jobs up in Harrisburg and they refuse to take the commute. I know it's rough to make the transition from Philadelphia to Harrisburg, but I try to incentivize it so we can, wear, no tie once a week or something. I don't know. It's the kind of things you have to promise Sharif just to get him out of a suit every once in a while. But the truth of the matter is, although not necessarily being a static presence at the Capitol, a static presence in front of lawmakers and engaging in policy, many of you in this room have already made a difference with how we view the field of education. Because through our conversations, we've realized that only 4% of teachers in PA are teachers of color. We've realized that we've seen a 63% decrease in the number of first-time certified teachers. And we know that by increasing the number of individuals going into teacher colleges and preparing themselves in the field of education, we're not only enriching our field, but we're creating pathways to success in who we're putting in front of our children, who's leading our buildings, and who's leading our school districts. We know that we have to revisit the policy in education. We have to revisit how we create conditions around education and what we're doing in colleges and universities. And because of many of the conversations we've had, both formally and informally, we've started to make some changes. First, we created multiple pathways in terms of how we identify who's entering our colleges of ed. Because we realized there were some, we talk about this test-taking culture for students. We talk about, what education has become a number on a sheet of paper, and we've said that's not really healthy for kids. And we also are starting to be honest about the fact that that's not very healthy for this mission of education. So we started to engage and incentivize changes with how we look at those who are entering the College of Ed, how we're looking at those who show the basic skills needed to enter the specific colleges, and incentivizing more educators of color to work towards serving our students. We worked on alternative ways to add on certificates for 5th and 6th grade, because we realized not only did we have a shortage, but those were some of our most vulnerable students, and at the same time, those who were most served with substitute teachers or having no teacher at all. We wrote into our ESSA plan that we're going to work with colleges to build in a full-year residency program so that teachers and prospective teachers in their last year of college can spend the full year in the classroom working under a master teacher. We're working under our ESSA plan to create pipeline programs, like one we have in Pittsburgh, Brashear Academy, a teaching academy in which students, 80% of which are students of color, can take 9th and 10th grade in high school, 11th and 12th grade with Allegheny Community College, 2 years at the University of Pittsburgh, become certified teachers, and are guaranteed jobs in Pittsburgh's public schools. I know you're going to be hearing from Dr. Height as well, but Dr. Height, Dr. Generals, and I have been engaged in very similar conversations to see a like program here in Philadelphia. We're also engaged with other third-class cities across the Commonwealth to create pipeline programs across PA. We also wrote a grant for Troops for Teachers to help veterans who are serving our communities overseas come back and serve in our classrooms. But we know that we can engage in policy, we can engage in conversation, we can incentivize teaching, we can work to help more of us enter the colleges of education and then go on to serve our kids. But there's one elephant in the room we have to address. And that's how we treat educators. That's how the community views the field of education. And that's why conversations like this are so important. I heard from this young student teacher who's now a teacher, and it always resonates with me what she shared. And I told her I was going to steal this line because she said, I'm so excited to enter the occupation that creates all other occupations. I say, that's powerful. So I'm going to steal that. That's what we do in education. We call it best practice. And I did warn her, I may forget to give you credit, so I'm going to differentiate it for my needs and depending on the audience. So it's important you learn those lessons now before you enter the classroom. But we continued to add. We said, not only is teaching the occupation that creates all other occupations, it's the mission that drives all other missions. It's the one career that changes communities one student at a time. And we know that those of you sitting in this room, we know that teachers of color make a tremendous difference, not only for our students of color. Research shows just one. Being exposed and having experience with one teacher, administrator, leader of color changes perspectives for life. And not only for our young children of color, for all children, for all adults. If we want to view leadership in our community differently, then have to work with, respond, reply, engage with a leader, a person of influence who happens to be a person of color. And you will view that community differently. When we start to really have these conversations, both formally and informally, it's funny how almost everyone, if they've been lucky enough to have one, can identify, can mention, can still give you the name and the grade of the one teacher of color they had. I remember mine. I guess I was one of the lucky ones. 7th and 8th grade, Miss King. Young African-American female. Amazing teacher. Now you notice I said 7th and 8th grade, Miss King, because I didn't have two, I just had her twice. Because she cycled with us. But guess what? I still remember in 7th and 8th grade some of my most vulnerable years. It's where I spent all of my free time. And I learned as much about life as I learned about school. And those are the opportunities we can provide for our kids each and every day. So I shared with you that I taught here and I served, was fortunate enough to become a leader in the school district of Philadelphia. Not bad for the first person graduating college in his family. Growing up in North Philadelphia, right on the border of what's considered the Badlands, and having taught and been an assistant principal and a principal in the Badlands. I remember wearing a t-shirt to school. Like I said, we like to steal an educator, so we stole a little something from Run DMC and said, it's not bad meaning bad, it's bad meaning good. Because if you can make it out of here, you are bad. You're bad in a good way. Because we knew that if we called communities the Badlands and we told kids you were from the Badlands, You say that enough times, and folks start to perpetuate that stereotype. And that's why, as educators, we work so hard to change the narrative. That's why, as educators, we work so hard to change the narrative. But we know something through customer service research. You are 7 times more likely to share a negative experience than you are a positive experience. Which means those of us in this room have to be 7 times more diligent, 7 times more diligent to share the positive stories that go on each and every day in our schools. That means the schoolyard, that means the grocery store, that means church, that means the pharmacy, that means each and every chance that you get. Because educators are humble. We don't like to share our successes. We don't like to tout the detail of every life we changed. We don't like to point to ourselves and say, we're special. We make a difference. But we do. And as secretary, I have an interesting opportunity. I get to visit schools and school districts and engage with education associations. But I also get to speak often to chambers of commerce and business and industry communities. And it doesn't fail. So there's a great social experiment. Whenever there's an award given through an education organization, the leader, the president, will usually hold the award up, announce a name, and you'll see everyone at the table get excited and clap, and everyone in the room clap. But the educator doesn't stand, almost refuses to stand. Actually, you know who has won the award because they're the person at the table with their head down, trying not to make eye contact. And then eventually they push the person off, out of their chair, and they humbly walk themselves up to the stage, and they accept the much-deserved accolade. Now I get to go to Chamber of Commerce lunches too, and I get to give, great keynote addresses as to why education is worth investing in and how we have to invest more, how we have to ensure equitable distribution of resources, and then they give the award. When the president at a chamber event says, and the winner is, 10 people stand up. I mean, it's awkward because 9 of them are going to have to sit down. But they start to celebrate their successes before their name is even called. And they don't work half as hard. They don't change half as many lives. They don't engage with our future even remotely close in the ways that you do. So if you do nothing else and you don't remember anything else of what we shared today and how you engage with our colleagues today, remember this. We have to be the ones to celebrate the lives we change. We have to be the ones that remind everyone the importance of education. We have to remind ourselves that we are the individuals that transform communities each and every day, one child at a time. And from the state's top educator, or as I like to say, the state's biggest cheerleader, I want you to know that I continue to be in awe of the work that you do each and every day. And I also want you to know that the work you do is noticed and greatly appreciated. So thank you for changing lives. Thank you for creating the future of not only the Commonwealth, but of this country. Thank you. Regardless of your race,
regardless of your gender,
regardless of your sexual orientation,
gender identity or expression,
regardless of your religion, you have the right to be treated fairly.
You have the right to feel safe in your community and your school.
You have the right to worship any way you want.
And you have the right to love whomever you want.
William Penn founded Pennsylvania on principles of tolerance and freedom.
All of us lucky enough to have the privilege to